That is the sky, believe it or not, people. That's what you're looking at. This live is going to be about a lot of things, and I'm not going to weave them together. It's not going to be a mystery. I'll make it clear, but I've put my mind to a few problems, and I got answers. So it's not just my mind. I pray, I get answers, you know. So, people, the picture that I took is of something that is hidden, but it will be found. In fact, I believe it to be a failed satellite. That's what I'm going to call it. And I believe a very, very long time ago it came down and is now where Cooper had found some anomalies. I'll get into that in a bit. So I'll give some people some time to get into the room, and then I'll talk about this mystery weapon that they don't seem to know what it is, but I know what it is. So hopefully this will be helpful, and they can find it and stop the person using it. What's going on here? Am I going to have to listen to this mess? Y'all hear this? Somebody has an alarm. Perfect timing, right? What's that about? Oh boy, hopefully the place that I'm parked behind is not being robbed or something. I'm hearing an alarm though. Man, hopefully it's a car alarm. Y'all hear that? That's that building over there. Huh. Well, boy. Well, I think that's the motorcycle shop. They done set it off. I'm telling you, people, this whole world's going crazy. The whole world is going crazy. I'm just living in it. I'll give some time for some people to show up, because this is going to be something that people are going to want to hear from the start. So while I'm just chilling, I'll tell you what this live is going to be about. There's a high energy weapon. It's being used against our people. They have lists of our people. That was let out a long time ago. That kind of sucks. And well, they have who's who of everybody, and they are using it against them. They used it against them in Havana, Cuba, which is why they were calling some of it the Havanna Syndrome. They used it against them in China. China has one. They used it against them in Russia. Russia has one. They used it against our troops in Syria. They used it against a bunch of our diplomats. And they basically they attacked the White House because there was people that were around the White House that were diplomats and not so much diplomats, but they're basically saying CIA officers, and so they hit them with it. And this weapon, there's a treatment that helps, but it has left officers not able to even do their job, and they had to quit working for CIA and other offices. So this is not good. They need to find the person doing this, and there is an answer, and I think I know how they can track them down. That's part of this live. The second part of this live is going to be about Cooper's treasure, not DB Cooper. No one will ever know completely everything about that, but that guy, he had a big party and told a lot of stuff. So that guy, They found some of his money too. Not DB Cooper. One of our astronauts with the last name Cooper. I'm just going to use the name Cooper, if that's all right. I'll put it in the comments. I'll put the name, but so let's see here. Is he man hopes well on your end? Yeah, things are good there. Let's see. Oh, yeah. So, not DB Cooper, but astronaut Cooper of the Mercury missions. Okay. So, and also about the high energy weapon, I'm going to tell the people who were involved with that type of research and inventing it. I've got nomenclature, actual words that will make sense to the people, that they will know what it is. And the main thing about all this is, if I'm correct, and I'm usually correct because it's not my knowledge, I take glory for this. It's not my knowledge. It's beyond my ability to comprehend, but there it is. It's knowledge, and it's accurate. That if this knowledge is correct, I appreciate the like. I ain't even done nothing. I just got here. If this knowledge is correct, it takes a fuel that would be easy to track to find the jerk that's doing it. And I'm pretty sure it would be Spetsnaz, a well-trained Russian operative that's over here. And truthfully, there is nobody that's over here that's not in some way connected to Russia's political party. They just don't allow them over here. Oh, okay. Appreciate that. Hamilton, yeah, appreciate that. So let's get into it. Okay. There have been attacks on our CIA operatives in and around, or at and around, the White House, outside of the building. There have been attacks on our people that were actually, they were high-level ambassadors, people that worked in different countries, not the ambassador, but people who worked with our embassy in different countries. One was in Cuba, which they were calling Havanna Syndrome. Now, we're talking about a total of 130 people affected by this. I would think they would want this answer. So hear what I'm saying. This is a big deal, people. 130 people plus have been affected by a high energy weapon, and that's just diplomatic people that are helping out. That's not including our military in Syria that were hit, and those by the Russians. Okay. All right. It's not a microwave weapon, but it's on the microwave level. Okay. It's not a space weapon. It's not a laser. A laser would go right through someone. Okay. It's not a denial weapon where they make you too hot with a certain amount of microwaves and you feel the heat. You would feel the heat. These people are hearing a noise in their ears, and it's affecting them, and it's making their brain actually change a little bit and be damaged. So I'm telling you what this weapon is, and I'm gonna tell you what to look for. If you're in circles of government that you can look for this thing, you need to be looking for someone with a shoebox size thing, and it may be in a shoebox, with lenses that would be, it will look like a laser setup. It will look just like that. And the fuel they need to make this thing work is cryogenics. What they need is to get it cooled below 170 or even 190 degrees Fahrenheit. They are using a superconductor that is primed maybe with a laser or pumped with a laser, but it's not a laser. It's likely just the energy from this thing. Okay? It's spinning at 6,500 RPM, and that's the noise that people hear. Because the noise is translated on the wavelength. Think of it as a radio wave that people can actually pick up that channel and hear it, if that makes any sense. So, it's not on your wavelength, it's on a bad wavelength. I've put up music that's on your wavelength. No, this is bad. So, it does damage. Lots of damage. It'll make them so they can't even do their job. All right. So, while they're looking around looking for where it's at, it's somewhere between a quarter mile and 2 miles away. They tested it in Russia. It had nominal power loss at a quarter of a mile. That means it's good for 2 miles. Okay, maybe more. And the lens is for them to be able to see, almost like a spotter, for them to be able to see what to point it at. If there's a laser involved other than pumping it or priming it, like how they pump lasers with carbon monoxide in a tube, it's kind of, if they use it, it's like that. If not, here's what I'm saying. If there's a laser involved, it will just be to paint a target. Somebody walking, they hit them, and then that person is like, where's this coming from? And they're affected and they don't know what's going on. Well, when they sit still, that means they can just get hit more. The idea is to run when this happens. Do you hear what I'm saying? Because it's so far away, you start moving fast, they won't be able to target you anymore because it's too far away. I would get behind something like concrete block, or because it's not going to go through concrete block. It's not a sound weapon. It's not a laser per se. It's not a microwave per se. That would have to be close to you. Okay. It's not from space. This is liquid nitrogen cooling a superconductor material that's spinning at 6,500 RPMs or better. And it creates a byproduct that is directed energy beam. And it can be used as a weapon. It could be used as something good, but they're not using it as something good. The woman who was working on it was from China. She worked on it with our guys. Then she wound up moving back to China, and since she has been lost. She fell off the face of the planet. Somebody's still paying for her company to run, but she don't exist anymore. And the last time she made any kind of a comment on the internet was a good hot minute ago, quite a few years ago. And it was basically that she was saying on there in like an email thing that she created 11 kilowatts of AC gravity. Now, once you hear that nomenclature, AC gravity, the people up top, the ones that, you know, that are in control of all things will understand. I know what I'm talking about. AC gravity, she calls it this because it's attractive and it repels and attracts at the same time. This creates anti-gravity. Okay? So, for people that don't understand this, don't worry about it. Don't worry about that you haven't seen anti-gravity yet. Don't worry about it. Just know that this is a weapon that is spinning superconductive discs. Okay? Now, it's breakthrough propulsion physics is what it is. It doesn't agree so much. It's actually what would be the word? It's exotic physics. It doesn't agree with Einstein's theory of relativity so much with energy because it's quantum locking of two particles. The magnet that you set it on is quantum locked with it. If you spin it at 6,500 RPMs, it creates a whole beam of gravity. It's a gravity wave weapon. Okay, so you know what happens if somebody gets hit by a gamma ray and they travel, and they just figured it out with gravitational waves. A gamma ray will go through you and cause damage. This does something different because there's no gamma ray, there's no photon involved. It's simply a gravitational wave. And it hits you like a wave. And it does damage. So it's a high frequency gravitational wave research weapon. All right. So there's a guy that, well, first let me give you that name and you can Google this name. Ning Lee, Ninglee. She's the woman who was pioneering some of the research behind this, who had peer-reviewed studies that made it through, and then all of a sudden she drops out of academia, starts working on it privately. Someone else in her area starts working on it privately. She gets grants, she moves to China, and then no one can reach her anymore, not even our government. So she's over there with them. They probably have from her this. Now, on the Russian side of things, okay, well, in the Navy side of things, you'd look up the name Salvatore Pais. He got a patent on a few of these things, okay? Now, on the Russian side of things, like I said, this is all the same thing. It's all the same, okay? I wrote that name down. Eugene Pondanov, okay? And this is back in 1996. Eugene, Pondonov is my spelling of it. You can look up in Finland Science Magazine, and also he has videos on YouTube where he did his experiments. Okay, so in Russia, that's where they did the experiment where they actually had it spinning. She didn't have it spinning. All she was doing was a static, cryogenically cooled, it's a superconductor at that point, magnet, and they were testing energy. They were going to do a spinning superconductor later. Then in China, she says, hey, we got it up to 6,500 RPMs and it does a little something. All right, they did the same in Russia, and it sent energy with nominal loss over 1/4 mile. That means it would probably shoot 5 miles, but I'm giving it a 2-mile range because you're talking about a scope and you're talking about trying to hit people. That's about 2 miles. All right. What the nomenclature is this. It's a piezoelectrically induced high temperature superconductor. Okay? That's what they're trying to do, is high temperature. It's really low temperature. It's cooled with liquid nitrogen. If they will try to look for the person with the shoebox with the lenses, if they can't find him via visual, they need to look for whoever in the United States has been buying cryogenic liquids such as, like I said, liquid nitrogen. That's what they use. Whoever's bought liquid nitrogen, look it up and find it out, because that's what fuels this weapon, because they have to keep the superconductor material cool or it doesn't work at all. It has to turn itself into a different state of matter, people. When you get something that is close to zero, they figured out that absolute zero is what I'm talking about, not zero. I'm talking about 400 degrees below zero is absolute, is about far, but at about 190 to about 220 degrees negative Fahrenheit, you will start to see things act differently, and certain things take on different properties. This is what our other state of matter is, because in school they will teach you that there is a solid and a liquid and a gas. Then when you get out of school, you realize, hey, there's also a plasma. Then you go further in your research and you learn, well, super cooled materials do just like super hot materials. A super hot material is a plasma. Things turn into plasma. a supercooled material turns into a Bose-Higson condensate. A Bose-Higson, what is it? Let me make sure I got this right here too, because there's the Einstein uh, Bose is one, but the Bose-Higson is a new particle. Okay, but there's a state of matter called, I think it's Bose-Einstein condensate. It means basically when something gets really, really cold, it turns into a wave. Like instead of sitting there, it turns into a wave, and all of the particles start to be one particle, almost like liquid. They want to call it liquid. It's not liquid. It's just a new form of matter in a way, almost like the Higson-Bose condensate. Okay, but it's just basically, though, it's the opposite of gas because it's super cold, and once it gets warmed, once it creates friction and loosens its below 170 something degrees, it loses its ability to do anything that it's doing, which is it will float above a magnet, it will float below a magnet. It creates an anti-gravitational field because it stops gravity from flowing through it. It's no longer affected by gravity at that cold of a temperature, and it becomes a superconductor of electricity with 0 ohms resistance. So you could pump that with energy, and it's spinning at 6,500 RPMs does something completely different. It creates a field, a generated energy wave, gravitational wave in front of it, and that is the weapon, is the wave. It has to keep cool. They have to constantly keep it below 190 something degrees, negative 190 degrees, or it will not work at all. It will be a black hockey puck. Okay. It's a certain kind of oxygen mixed with, I think they call it YOLO. What is that stuff called? Yezo something. There's a few chemicals they put together, and then they heat it, and then they put it in an oven and bake it, and they make these ground up black dust. Then they compress that into a hockey puck kind of a thing, and then they pour liquid nitrogen on it, and then it starts working. Okay. This is the weapon that they're using on people. It's not a microwave. Microwaves will make you hot and repel you. That does not go past your skin. Even the denial weapons that are used by the military does not go through a person's skin. This is a directed gravitational wave weapon, and it's causing damage to people's brain. And they can go through therapy and it helps them, but I'm not sure if it's causing permanent loss of hearing or what it's not. So it's not like subsonic, or that would actually hurt their eardrums. That would cause it right away. This is long-lasting effects, and it's different. It's actually brain damage, and you're gonna have to look for somebody that's messing with cryogenic liquid nitrogen. Find out who's doing this. They need to find that person. So obviously they have a list of people to hit with it, but you could be collateral damage and walk by and be hit with it. So if you are affected by something like this, get behind a brick wall. Get away from it right away. Don't look around to see where it's coming from. Leave quickly. The faster you move, the harder it would be to find you from that guy with that box thing. Okay? I'm seeing it as a box thing. That's my seeing. I'm seeing it as a box thing with like lenses, like some funky lenses on it. Almost like a laser thing. Only they actually, the woman, she had a prototype of it that was a small box, but it did not spin. This was just the first stage of it before you spin one. So it was just a superconductor. Then if you spin it, that's when it has a byproduct of this wave. So you can look up Eugene Pondanov. That's the guy in Russia that's worked with it. You can also look up, which, you know, they got their own people there. You can also look up that lady Ning. I wrote the name down. Ning. Well, you probably already have it if you were listening, but Ning Lee, Ninglee. There's videos of her explaining this on YouTube, and she's missing. We can't find her. So that's how it happened in China. Is China got that from her? Way it happened in Russia is that's how they got it. That guy's work. And in Syria, those were the Russians in Syria doing it there. In Havana, that was likely Russian agents in Cuba doing that. And so in China, when it happened also before that time, they were also hitting pilots with lasers in their eyes while they're flying over. They had people who had eye damage from lasers being, hitting them, and it caused retinal damage. So that's what the Chinese military is doing now. I'm going to get off that for a second. They just need to go find that person that's doing that, because that's Russian warfare nowadays. This is the war we're in. This is what they're doing, and they've been doing it since like even 2006. I'm gonna put up a playlist with links to all this. My links are always better than my lives. You can look it up, but I'm just telling you, there's nothing in there about this. This is the weapon. I know this. I've seen it. I asked the question. I stayed up without sleep, and I got the answer. That's how it works. It's just like if you give something up like Lent, or if you fast, if you go without sleep, prayerfully, mindfully, you'll get the answer. It'll show you the places to go. So, now, the picture that I took, this is something different. You may find this to be more enjoyable, but that was important that I put that out. This object that I took a picture of, that I drew, is an object of high importance. It's hidden. This is a vision that I drew. It's priceless. It's been there since the first day of human creation. It's as if God punched it into the earth, but it's my understanding it was above it before, almost like a failed satellite. Not quite. It's a cross with a circle around it, and I believe they found it, and that's why I'm bringing it up now. So I've seen this before. I didn't know what it was. Now I saw something on the internet. I was like, oh, that's what that was. So, astronaut Cooper, after the Cuban Missile Crisis, the United States was wanting to know what Russia was up to and to see if they had any more nuclear missile silos that they weren't telling us about in and around Cuba and other places, and to see what they were doing. So they had a camera on a space mission taking pictures. The guy even said in there, I'm just taking pictures. He's like, pictures. And he took something like a couple thousand of them. He also had on board a device. This device was a special type of magnetometer, I'll call it, if it's not that. It's my understanding that it was made by McDonald. They made a lot of things, but I mean, they at least they supplied it. I don't know who engineered it, but it was a good piece of equipment, and it was what I had tried to theorize and come up with using something that could see through the earth. This is a little different, so they haven't come up with that yet. This is to find metals like gold, but this, even in the ocean, picks up even the slightest amount of metal. So they were using this to find the metal lids on silos, missile silos. But what he come up with was all these other anomalies that were hits. And NASA was not interested in them, but it became interesting to him because he figured out quite quickly, who wouldn't, what they were. These were sunken ships made of metal, and some of them having gold and silver. So he started writing charts and charting them and checking out the GPS latitude and longitude coordinates and the pictures, and did all this mapping, and was never able really to get it. But well, he got a few things. But he made friends with this young man that was like enamored with him, like, you know, thought he was something famous, you know, and was like, got to meet him, and they became friends. And one day he says, I've got to show you something. And he pulled out this box with all of these papers from NASA that he had brought that were his, about his work, all of these maps and charts, and his own drawings of anomalies. Now, this guy's been hunting for treasure, and he's probably still looking for one, but he's been using these maps. That's what it's doing to me. It's resuming. Shut me down when it gets good, right? So there you go. All right. Now, it's close to microwave because it's on that side of the spectrum, but it's not microwaves. It is a gravitational energy wave. It will be, okay, if you look at low frequency, and then, there's ultra low, then low frequency, and then UHF, which is ultra high frequency, and then, you know, it goes up into microwave and then heat. So the radio spectrum is in there, and then it goes up to heat. This is the spectrum. If you had an AM FM radio that went all the way to the left and all the way to the right, all the way to the right would be heat. Just below that is microwave. Okay, that is our energy spectrum. That's all we got to work with. Okay, in this in this dimension, in this type of layer of plane of existence. So you could, it's not truly a microwave. It's within that spectrum, but it's not a microwave. So, all right, not the way you know it. It acts different, just like photons are light and they make heat, but that's not a microwave. All right, so, but heat is very close to the microwave spectrum. So think of it as something between heat and microwaves in a split band, a side band, because it's completely different. It doesn't even agree with physics. It's not even on the band. I'm trying to put it somewhere. That's where I'd put it. So, okay, back to Cooper. I just happened to see that comment. So Cooper gave this guy all this stuff. Now, while he was looking down there, he found an anomaly that was one that Cooper thought was interesting, but it's not a ship, not for the water, and it's not gold, but it's worth more than gold. It's completely covered with barnacles and encrusted, and it has a ring around it. And I saw this that I drew. I saw this a long time ago. Didn't know what it was. I drew it a long time ago. This is a redrawing from earlier today. After I saw that video, I said, that spire that sticks out to the side laterally, you know, horizontally, looks like this. And then the guy says, oh, and it was surrounded by rings. That's like, that's it. It's stamped into the ground. So the bottom is a red stone. That long stick that looks like a stake in the picture I took, that's a stone. It's a red stone. This thing was designed to do something with energy. And it's under the ocean now, covered with barnacles from, like, I don't know, hundreds of thousands of years ago. So, however long it's been there, I don't know. But it's off of the Bahamas. And when he went around and took pictures, I'll put up a couple of pictures. I'll put up like some community little pictures. And so this is worth more than all the gold. He can have the gold in the ships and all that stuff. I hope, God bless him, I hope he finds it. This, if that's what I'm thinking it is, and it's not the South Atlantic Anomaly. That's a different thing altogether. That thing, they tried to take pictures of it, but when they get within 200 feet, their cameras go dead, and then they get back away and they work again. They said at this point all they can do is go over it with sonar. That's the one that looks like the Millennium Falcon ship, but it looks like it's made of rock of some kind of quartzite, but it's got even drag marks behind it. And they think they tested some of the material around it, and they said that's glacial material. But the people that went down, they said that's not from the ship thing or whatever, that structure. That's just what's around it, and nothing looks like it. Nothing matches it. It could be something that's surrounded and encased in stone at this point. That's what it looks like to me. But it's not even a regular stone. It's some type of stone, like a ruby or an emerald kind of stone. It's like something that's like a quartzite kind of thing, like it grew on there. Minerals grew to it. So it's not the South Atlantic Anomaly. Okay, not the gravitational anomaly, but this thing they call the anomaly. This is different. This has spires and a ring around it. I think it's almost like if you took a hat pin and punched it into the earth. That's what this thing is. It's stuck in there. There's a spire under it that sticks in. Okay, and this was, think of it like a space station or something, almost like the Dark Knight satellite. Now, I was going to say this too. I'm getting that the Dark Knight satellite, that NASA picked it up way back in a shuttle mission, brought it back, and that they've had it. They've already admitted that they have exotic material from a craft from another planet. They've already admitted to this, and they're going to let it out this next month. They will release a lot of stuff, and they're supposed to release everything to Congress at least, and then we'll hear about it in probably a week after that when it freaks them out and they don't know what to do with it. God bless them. They're just not smart enough to deal with some of this stuff. It's not their job. So, okay, so that exotic material, I think they got the Black Knight satellite. I think they got information on it. Now, the Black Knight satellite is this. Okay. It's my understanding that it was Nikola Tesla that picked up the signal. I'm not sure. I could be wrong, but I believe it was Nikola Tesla that picked up a radio signal that was a craft that was traveling in space. We didn't even have radio back then and all this stuff. He was picking up a signal. I mean, it's not like we had a lot. We didn't have a lot going on. He picked up a signal. So it wasn't background noise from Earth or something. And it was a craft that he mapped and got the trajectory of, and it was in a polar orbit. Now, even now, it's difficult for us to put spacecraft into a polar orbit where it goes from pole to pole. It's easy to send it in high Earth orbit or low Earth orbit, going around the equator or even around a certain latitude in like a figure-8 pattern. It's difficult to put something into a polar orbit. They think this thing has been there for 17 to 20,000 years. Okay, it's a big black thing. Some people have tried to explain it away, saying it was a blanket for something. No. This guy, like, seriously, if you knew how serious people were when they say, listen, I'm picking up a transmission from space and it's in a polar orbit and it's regular enough, but the orbit's irregular. That's what's weird about it. It doesn't just float around and go around. It's almost like it stops, disappears for a little while, and then it goes around. So I don't know if it stops at the South Pole and then waits and then comes around. I don't know what it does, but the Black Knight satellite, I think they brought it down is what I'm getting. That they brought it down with the shuttle, and that they already have had it and downloaded information from it, and that's the thing that they have. They're not going to admit to craft that go fast, even though recently that guy, I'll get his name from let's see, the Navy got a patent under the name Salvatore Pius, and a few patents. And in those patents, one of them sounded a lot like USOs. So one was for a piezoelectrically induced high temp superconductor. The second was for a high frequency gravitational wave generator, and the third was a hybrid craft using an inertial mass reducing device. So basically, that's the superconductor, that it reduces inertial mass. In other words, it doesn't get affected by gravity. But if you take a superconductor and you put it on a scale, it's quantumly linked to the magnet below it or above it, either way, and the scale will still register the normal weight of the thing even though it's floating. That's what's odd. So I've seen tests of that. So it's a hybrid craft using an inertial mass reducing device, and they're also calling it a aerospace craft that also goes undersea. So that's kind of like what they're calling the Tic Tac, only really truthfully, I don't know why they call it a Tic Tac, because the Tic Tacs are big as submarines. They're huge. They're just painted white, but they're not even as small as a propane tank that you would use for, say, a mobile home. These are huge. 45 feet long. That's not a Tic Tac. You ain't gonna swallow a 45. That's the horse pill. They should call it the horse pill or something bigger. You know, the air water submarine. Okay, and NASA's working on a submarine for space. Don't ask me what that's about. They want to put a submarine type vehicle in space, which all of them are, you know, spamming a can. That's what they were calling it, because they had no control and they were just riding along. They were meat, spamming a can. That's what they call themselves. But so back to Cooper. Cooper was had a side job, a side hobby, and that was taking notes on things that weren't important to other people but might be important to him, like shipwrecks with gold in them. So that guy's going to find his gold, but I think that this craft is worth more than all the gold he could possibly find. And there's over 1 million shipwrecks that haven't been found. There's a guy that brought up a bunch of gold that it was supposed to be just silver on that ship, and these big ingots are the size of a loaf of bread, and the silver ones weigh 70 pounds. The gold ones weigh about 3 times that much. And they pulled up tons of it. And the investors made money, he made money, and he still does it. Well, he wasn't able to use Cooper's mapping technique. So there's a lot of them that they don't know where they're at, except this one guy that's got all of Cooper's notes. So he'll be finding some stuff. But while he was down there looking, he found one anomaly that he was checking out, and it just happened to be a barnacle encrusted, I think it to be a failed satellite from a very long time ago, like before the Black Knight satellite. So I'm gonna check these comments. Let's see here, because I haven't seen them here. Let's see, because I'm sorry I missed all of them here. Okay. Is that what happened to Joe Biden? No, Joe Biden had his brain removed in a surgery. His head, not his brain removed. His head was separated from his spine, and they did a surgery and put it back on. This is from Alex Jones now, but he's got some good intel on it. And he tends to sniff people and tends to well, if you think I lose train of thought, I can't think of words, well, it's I haven't even had my brain removed or my head removed. So he has something that would be disconnectedness, just like his head was just disconnected. It is what it is. It doesn't even matter. You can't say he shouldn't be the ruler of the free world, or I mean the ruler, the leader of the free world, because truthfully, for a very long time, it's been a puppet show. Now Trump was in charge, but even before this, the other ones were like, "Oh, you want to do that? Okay, do that. Oh, you doing that? Do that." A whole lot of different interests, a whole lot of different irons in the fire. It is what it is. But nobody's up there now. So, and they've got fake pictures of Air Force One where they're walking up steps to a green screen, and they put the plane in the background. I've got another picture of the plane. I'll put that up too, where it's a shell of a plane, but it's not a plane. It's fake Force One. I guess they won't let them near the real Air Force One. And it's my understanding that the pilots even call it NA when Biden's on board, and that's kind of funny because it's either 28,000, right? Because when Kennedy's plane, when he wasn't on it, it was just called 28,000. Then when the president's on board, it's called Air Force One. Well, they're calling it NA, like not applicable. If this is true, I find this to be humorous. I really do. And if it's true that all the green screen pictures, that was Kamala Harris at the bottom of steps that I put up on that community picture. That was her. And those generals were, I don't even think they were real generals, because look at how they were standing. They had their hands in front of themselves. At the very least, they weren't showing respect. Like, there was no attention, there was no at ease, there was no parade rest. Okay? And she was wearing some funky shoes. They circled them too. The whole thing was to be green screened, and there was a green screen at top of steps to green screen in Air Force One from other videos. So why won't they let them near the rear Air Force One? I don't think that they are the government. I think that because we're under attack from Russia, they know what's popping. It's all these different energy weapons they're using, all these different tactics they're using, and I think Trump is still the president. Or at the very least, somebody else is running the show, and they're like, "Look, you're just up here. You're a figurehead." Is he signing bills into law? Yeah, imagine doing stuff. But to me, the way my optics of the whole situation is that just pop popcorn and watch the show. That's where I'm at on it, So, and watch them all go crazy. Now, I did look up everything to do with trains and tried to find that train car. I found something that was close, but it's not it. They had a hobo on the rail that hopped off the train. You could see him hop off the train. This guy that videos trains all the time told the conductor about it, and the conductor knew, and they called the police, and then they were there, but I don't think they got the guy. Well, I think that car could have been affected by some bad actors. And if they were hobos, they weren't real hobos. Kind of like the fake hobos that they caught back when Kennedy was shot. They actually arrested them. Don't let me do it live on Kennedy. I'll tell you all kinds of stuff. But those guys were well dressed, new shoes, clean haircut, nice shaved. They were not hobos. They just happened to be on that train car. So on the other side of the fence would be at the top of the grassy knoll on the other side, where the badge man was, where somebody over there had credentials that looked like it was good enough to be Secret Service, and even fooled a police officer. He showed it to him, but then the Secret Service says, "No, we ain't had nobody up there. We didn't have anybody on the other side of the fence." So, yeah, there was a lot going on with that. So the hobos back there, they were arrested and then later released. There was a couple of names, but it was like the first name and this name and that name. People have shown pictures, but they weren't arrest pictures. They were like just drawings of, hey, this is what the one guy had the funny eyebrows. So the people that know, you'll know the guy with the funny eyebrows. I know what I'm talking about, right? It's my understanding they were fake. Like, he had to wear fake eyebrows because his wouldn't grow, or they were shaved or something, and he just looked funny. Funny looking guy. So there was a lot going on there. Yeah, at some point, I'll get crazy enough to do a Kennedy assassination kind of a live where I talk about what all happened, because seriously, and the babushka lady is not the lady that worked at his club or a competitor's club to Jack Ruby, and Jack Ruby knew Oswald. Don't get me all started on that, but the point is, that's not the babushka lady. The babushka lady was a Russian agent, and they knew it was going on because they had ends and knew intel back then. There was some people that were compromised. they knew about it. So, and Lee Harvey Oswald was not at the gun range shooting somebody else's target because he was in Mexico at the time. So when that guy testified that he saw Harvey Oswald and he was acting odd and he was shooting this kind of gun, a Carcano, at my target instead of all that was a made up story. It would have worked, but even the Warren Commission had to throw that out because they said no, that must have been mistaken identity because Oswald was in Mexico. Nobody wants to talk about Mexico. He went down there with friends. He wasn't alone. They went to parties and stuff. The two friends were trampy looking people, kind of like the other tramps. Like, not the hobos they call them real, but the tramps. They talk about the tramps. So, yeah, there's a lot to that. Smoke on the street level. Everybody smelled it. You know, smoke at the behind the fence. They saw a puff of smoke, and it was not a cigar or a cigarette. And then the badge man, the guy left. So, those kind of hobos that are well dressed and stuff, I think have something to do with that train car that I saw in a vision, that train car. And so I hope they find that sucker because that's annoying. I get the premonition that they will find it and that it won't even be a problem, but it's there. So it's hidden because the car's not supposed to be there, and it's hidden because something's in it. That's what I know. For a whole lot. That's actionable though. That's happened. It's just when I see things ahead of time, like when I wove that in, and I'm not Nostradamus, I'm not going to write backwards, but I tried to weave it into a live best as I could and say, hey, I hope you pick it up what I'm putting down, and then I explain it, because for the people that have this gift, they need to know you can't do anything about it, so don't beat yourself up about it. But you can know that, yes, it's a gift. You can know it's tomorrow. The problem is tomorrow. You know, like I said, God wants this time to be set up for this. He didn't want it to happen, but he set up the time, and it's free will, and it'll happen. There's nothing you can do about it. People acting crazy. Train cars backing up and backing up. All the intel I had, I wove into that pretty good. And I said, I explain this as best I can, because I don't write backwards, because I'm not Nostradamus. So, in case you wasn't taking notes, maybe I'll put it in the comments in that video for the people that don't have eyes that can see and ears that can hear, but want to understand exactly what I was saying, and maybe missed reading in between the lines and the words I used. So, but this weapon, the Havanna Syndrome, okay, is what they're calling it, because it happened in Havana, Cuba. But it also happened in China. It also happened in Russia to people we had there. It also happened in Washington, D.C. And it's over 130 people, and they have a right to know what it is. They need to catch this piece of crap. He's a Russian guy, and he's a Russian operative. And he's got something the size of a shoebox that's got the lenses, and it's got this that black stuff that makes it into a superconductor when you pour or soak it in liquid nitrogen. And it has to, I call it cook. It has to cool down in it for a good little minute or so. Then it's usable for probably 10 minutes or so, and then it has to be cooked again. I call it cooking because it's in there, it's boiling looking, but it's freezing. But it's below freezing. It's 190 degrees below zero. Minimum. You know, minimum's 170. Now, they did just do what they call a room temperature superconductor. I'm aware of this. Don't tell me about this. I know about this too. They used a couple of diamonds, and they used them like a vice. And they crushed an element in between the two. And then they made a superconductor out of this element, and it was, I think they got it to work at 17 degrees, I think it was, which is still cold, but it doesn't have to be frozen. It has to be at 17 degrees. And this material, I'm trying to think of what it was that they put in the diamond vise. It's called a diamond vise. Look up a diamond vise. It's crazy physics stuff. So small, so tiny, but they put it between there and they crush it, lock it in, and put high pressure. It has to be super high pressure between two diamonds to create the ability for it not to have to be cryogenically frozen below 198 or that's the magical number is 198, but it can be done at 170, but that's when it cuts off. You want it to be working temperature, which is really 220 below, because you start to lose conductivity at about 178 cuts off at about 196, and then it becomes less of a superconductor. So it doesn't even conduct gravity. It blocks gravity. It's an anti-gravitational device when you get it that cold. That's why they're saying they believe now that they have the technology that if they do that using a superconductor, they can create an anti-gravitational wave within a craft, and it doesn't matter the weight of the device, they'll be able to lift it. Bob Lazar talked about using element, I forget the number, but the point is it was a new element, and that's what he found was the element. It hadn't even been invented yet. They came out with it later. That was what the spacecraft that he worked on at Groom Lake, which is Area 51, that it was using as a motor. And he said we had a few of the motors. One of them, he thinks somebody died because they tried to break into that motor and crack into it and see what was in it. And basically the thing exploded. It was like messing with a nuclear weapon. You don't do that. So, and I'm getting this as knowledge too, and I'm just going to put it out there because this is just a smorgasbord at this point. I put a bunch of stuff in. All right. In the same way that Russia is using ransomware to take and hold us hostage for money, and they know that they approved that, they know they did that, and they know that there are people working on it, and that it's state-sponsored terrorism. They plan to use at least 3 of the Poseidons and to take America hostage. That is their plan. This is Whispers of Angels. This is what I get. This is their plan. So they're going to put it out there, and either through trade agreements and, hey, you'll do this, or those are just sitting out there waiting kind of a thing. That's what they're working on. It's a bigger ransomware. It's a ransomware that is not, the ware part is hardware, and it's I don't know, how could you say no to that? It's kind of messed up. So it's a lot like the Cuban Missile Crisis. It wasn't just a deterrent, it was a threat. This is not just a deterrent for them, it's a threat. And our intelligence calls it canyon for a reason, because it's going to create a canyon even as deep into the bottom of the ocean as it knocks water over the highest buildings in New York. And it's going to come in with nuclear laden water, so you can't you can't inhabit those areas probably 40 years, because the half-life of the nuclear elements there is a lot longer than that. But even the cleanup would be almost impossible. All of the metal would have to be destroyed because it's impregnated and it picks up nuclear fission. Any kind of nuclear fission that happens, metal picks it up. So a ring on your hand, you'd want to discard it. A watch on your wrist, you'd want to discard it. Metal around you wouldn't want to be in a car that was in around that fallout, because it's glowing hot with the radiation from it. The steel picks it up. Steel is a conductor of radioactivity. So the buildings, the metal buildings, even though they are sheetrock and this kind of thing, the framework is metal. All the high rises, all of New York, it would break them in half, the wave would, but then the metal would have to be destroyed because it's laden, it's glowing hot, it's charged with radiation. And that leads me to another thing. There was a guy that was just talking about this. He did a video. He was a good guy. He actually got some stuff banned from the United States. That was awesome. it's now illegal for them to sell these wristbands that say that they are ionic whatever. So if you have any ionic wristbands, those set off Geiger counters. Get rid of them. Also, the face masks that go over your eyes that say they are ionic creating, those are nuclear laden. I think he said thorium, I believe, was the nuclear element, which the dust from it, breathing it in, could give you cancer in your lungs. You're dosing yourself with radiation. Basically, China has a 100-year plan and a 1,000-year plan. In the 1,000-year plan, they plan to poison us within the 100-year plan by putting lead paint on baby toys, by putting silicon in paint that dust, it gets into your lungs, by doing everything to make us stupid, by putting things that will cause Alzheimer's and dementia and loss of cognitive function to the point that it will even be genetically passed on to your posterity. And also, they plan to walk in and take over the U.S. is what they think in 1,000 years after they have thoroughly radiated us. So that's what their plan was with putting in plates and dishes radioactive material. There's a whole lot of them that are out there. Look it up. I'll put a link to his video. My links are better than my lives, people, but I know it's a lot of stuff. And I'm gonna take a drink of water. You may come in if you want to, and then I'm gonna get off this thing. God bless you, people. It's a lot. Just know that that Havanna Syndrome, that is, you can't call it, it's gravitational waves. I would put it in a different physics than the microwave spectrum, but somewhere between microwave and heat, on a different level. Sideband. It's sideband energy because it breaks some laws of physics while it's at it. Good stuff. Yeah. So that Ning Li, she's the one that got it to China. So the ones that got hit in China, that was from that. Is what it is. They're always messing with God particles. Anything that you can't see, other than using a magnifying glass, an old man's helper, to read fine print, or to I pulled a splinter out of a mechanic's hand the other day. Told him, hey, I'm a medic when a medic ain't here. Come on over here, I'm a healer. Told him his bloodline, and that freaked him out. He held still enough though and held the flashlight, so that was good. And then I pulled a metal steel piece of metal out of his hand and told him, okay, by the way, you're not done yet, because you might need a tetanus shot. So if your jaw locks up, and when that happens, you've got, like an hour before you die. So get to the hospital. So people, if you haven't had a tetanus shot and you step on a rusty nail or cut your hand with a rusty knife or something to that effect, and your jaw locks up, that is your last ditch save me effort, kind of go to the hospital thing. Okay, it's called diphtheria tetanus that you need, DT. If you don't have a DT on a card that you got a shot for recently, within say 4 to 6 years, well, you might need a booster. So there was that. So if it's not something like you need a magnifying glass for, to take a piece of metal out of somebody's hand or whatever, back to getting on point here, then it's God particles. And we shouldn't be messing with them at all. It's done nothing good for us. Nuclear energy was just a temporary band-aid that caused so much nastiness that we have now to store and keep for millions of years. There may be different civilizations that don't even understand our language. We're gonna have to use pictures to say, don't come in here, this stuff is bad for you, for the next 10,000 generations. Not to mention Fukushima is in the ocean, killing the fish and lading them up with that stuff. So if you like your fish with cesium-139 and 137 sauce, you got it already. You don't even have to make the sauce. You just add water. So it's nasty. Just add water. God bless you, people. I'm gonna get off this thing. I think I just dropped a track of truth. And there's nothing woven into this one. But there's still that car. And I think that barnacle encrusted thing is what I've seen a long time ago and what I was kind of looking for them to find one day. I think that's what that is. I know they'll find it. I don't know how long it'll be. They'll find it eventually. But it's not the South Atlantic anomaly. So I'll put up links to all of this, and I will call it, maybe I'll just put it under live. I have one that's live. I also have one that's Havanna Syndrome. I'll put them both up, and like in 2 seconds I'll have it on this. So God bless you people. That's all I got. Have an awesome day. If you missed it, if you're just coming in, watch it from the start. If you have been affected by that weapon, sorry to hear it. This is the answer. And I'm glad they have a therapy that is working for some people, but 130 people attacked, and they're all off of a list because Russia has a list of our people. They found that when there was a leak a long time ago. And that's not good. So that is the warfare they brought to our doorstep. I don't know. They need to find the person that's doing it, though. If they haven't already. They may have. But that's what he's doing. So find out who's buying cryogenic, liquid nitrogen. And I looked at it and I've got a magnetic thing that I'm going to work on inventing that does something similar, but it's the static version of that. At this point, I wouldn't buy that cryogenic stuff at this point because they need to be looking for anybody buying that for real. That is the person. That's the one. He's got to charge it within 10 to 15 minutes every time. Don't take but a few minutes for it to get cold, but he would need liquid nitrogen. I'm sure that he didn't come from Russia with liquid nitrogen. They do bring Novichok, so I ain't gonna say they don't. And they do bring polonium-210. They tend to mess with that stuff. They took out a remote viewer of ours with the Novichok. Don't hear about that much. So, maybe I'll put a link to that one too. I got a bunch of links to drop. God bless you people. Watch the links. It's even better than this show. I'm out. Peace.